Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Braj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yasoda, and the delighter of the inhabitants of Braj. He wanders in the forest along the banks of the river Jamuna. Okay, so we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 11. Shambharam, please repeat. Shambharam.
Shambharam?
That's what's up there, right?
No.
11's not up there.
It's 11 through 13. Sakarna. Dusashana. Shabalanam.
Okay, so they went ahead on to text 13. Okay. I should have looked at that. Okay. But I'll come back to 11 and we'll just go ahead and do 13. I'll come back and read 11, 12, and 13. Please repeat. Sakarna. Dushashana. Sabalanam. Sakarna. Dushashana. Sabalanam. Kumatra. Pakena. Hata. Shriya Yusam. Kumantra Pakina Hatta Shriya Kusham.
Kumantra Pakina Hatta Shriya Kusham.
Suyodhanam. Sanucharam. Shayanam. Sayudhanam. Shunacharam. Shayanam. Bagnoram. Uvyam. Nananda. Pashan. Bagnoram. Uvyam. Nananda. Pashan. Sakarna Dushashana Shabalanam. Kumantra Pakina Hatta Shriya Yusham. Suyodhanam Shanucharam Shayanam. Bagnoram Urvyam Nananda Pashan.
Sakana Dusasana Sabalanam. Kumatra Pakina Atta Sriya Yusam.
Suyodanam Sanucharam Sayanam
Bhagnoram Uvyam Nananda Pashyan
Barduram Urvayam Nadapasyam
Sakana Dushashan Subalanam
Sakana Dushashan Sabalanam
Kumantra Pakena Hatta Sriyayusam
Kumantra Pakena Hatta Sriyayusam
Suyodanam Sanucharam Sayanam
Suyodanam Sanucharam Sayanam
Pagnoram Urjamna Nananda Pashan
Bhagnoram Uvyam Nananda Pashyan
Sakarna Dushasana Sabalana
Sakana Dushasana Sabalanam
Mantra Pakena Hatasriyayusam
Kumantra Pakena Hatta Sriyayusam
Yodanam Sanucharam Shayanam
Suyodanam Sanucharam Sayanam
Bhagor Urvayam Nananda Pashim
Bhagnoram Uvyam Nananda Pashyan Sakana Dushasana Sabalanam Kumantra Pakena Hatta Sriyayusam
Sayudanam Samitram Sayanam
Sayodanam Sanucharam Sayanam
Baburam Arvyam Anandapasyam
Bhagnoram Urvayam Nananda Pashyan
Please repeat. Saha,
Saha
he,
He,
the Lord.
the Lord
Karuna, Karna,
Karna
Karna. Dushashana, Dushashana.
Shashana
Shabalanam,
Shabalanam
Sabala.
Savala
Kumantra,
Kumantra
Pakena.
Pakena
By the intricacy of ill advice.
by the intricacy of ill advice
Hata Shriya,
Hatta Shriya
bereft of fortune.
Bereft of fortune
Ayusham,
Ayusham
duration of life.
Duration of life
Suyodhanam,
Sayodanam
Duryodhana.
Yodana
Sa Anucharam,
Sanucharam
with followers.
with followers
Shayanam,
Shayanam
lying down.
lying down
Bhagna, broken.
Broken
Urum, thighs. Urvyam, very powerful.
Very powerful.
Na, did not.
Did not
Nananda, take pleasure.
take pleasure
Pashan,
Passion
see like that.
Things like that.
Please repeat. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune
Yodana was bereft of his fortune
and duration of life
and duration of life
because of the intricacy of ill advice
because of the intricacy of ill advice
given by Karna,
Given
given by Karna
Dushashana,
Dushashana
and Sabala.
and Sabala
When he lay on the ground with his followers,
he lay on the ground with his followers
his thighs broken although he was powerful,
his thighs were broken although he was powerful
the Lord was not happy to see the scene.
the Lord was not happy to see the scene
I'll repeat that. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacy of ill advice given by Karna, Dushashana, and Sabala. When he lay on the ground with his followers, his thighs broken, although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. Purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Jai. The fall of Duryodhana, the leading son of Dhritarashtra, was not pleasing to the Lord, although he was on the side of Arjuna, and it was he who advised Bhima how to break the thighs of Duryodhana while the fight was going on. The Lord is constrained to award punishment upon the wrongdoer, but he is not happy to award such punishments because the living entities are originally his parts and parcels. He is harder than the thunderbolt for the wrongdoer and softer than the rose for the faithful. The wrongdoer is misled by bad associates and by ill advice, which is against the established principles of the Lord's order, and thus he becomes subject to punishment. The surest path to happiness is to live by the principles laid down by the Lord and not disobey his established laws, which are enacted in the Vedas and the Puranas for the forgetful living entities. Translation. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacy of ill advice given by Karna, Dushasana, and Shabala. When he lay on the ground with his followers, his thighs broken, although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. And then that is text 13. So I'm just going to quickly read text 11. You don't have to repeat everything. Shambaram dividam baram muram ba balam eva cha anyams cha dantavakradin avadit comes cha gata yat. Oh, translation. O kings. Of kings like Shambara, Vivida, Bana, Mura, Vala, and many other demons, such as Dantavakra, some he killed himself, and some he caused to be killed by others. In parentheses, Sri Baladev, etc. Text 12. Ata te brat putranam pakshayo patitan nirpan chalabu kurukshetram yesham apatatam balai. Translation. Then, O Vidura, the Lord caused all the kings, both the enemies and those on the side of your fighting nephews, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. All those kings were so great and strong that the earth seemed to shake as they traversed the warfield. I just want to make one small point about that particular verse. I don't know if you've ever seen, Asian type movies where they have martial arts, things like that. They get a lot of their emphasis from the Vedas, I remember when we were in LA, we were doing Tai Chi, and there was a group of us that would go to the really higher quality, in Chinatown, we would go see the higher quality martial arts movies. And in those movies, quite often, when it was very powerful martial arts with a lot of chi, when they would walk, they would emphasize that the ground rumbled, I thought that was pretty amazing, But then, of course, we see people take all kinds of things out of the Mahabharata and put it in, a lot of writers, put it in their writings. So, going back to text 13, so right now we're going to join the fight in the Mahabharata from chapter 27. Bhima fights Duryodhana. We're not going to read the whole thing, but we're going to join the fight where it comes applicable to this text, Fear possessed the pawn of his hearts as they saw Bhima lying on the ground, but in a few moments he sprang to his feet, wiping the blood from his face, He gazed at Duryodhana with bloodshot eyes. The two men paced, regarding each other with cautious respect and looking for an opportunity to strike. As they circled, Arjuna said quietly to Krishna, "Who do you think is superior in this contest, O Janardana? What is their respective merit?" Arjuna himself, an accomplished mace fighter, felt anxious for Bhima. He had also noticed Duryodhana's apparent invulnerability and could not see how Bhima would overpower him. It seemed as if the Kaurava had the upper hand, but Krishna, who had saved Arjuna from many such situations, would surely know what to do. Krishna replied with a slight smile, "These two have received equal training. Bhima is stronger, but Duryodhana's skill is greater, and he has practiced much more. He has also been blessed by his mother's aesthetic power, making the contest uneven. Bhima will not win a fair fight, but if he resorts to unfair tactics, he will be victorious. Deceit in battle is acceptable against a deceitful foe. Even Indra used deceit to overcome the mighty Asuras, Virochana and Vritra." Watching as the two combatants rushed again at one another, Krishna reminded Arjuna of Bhima's promise to break Duryodhana's thigh, a promise later reinforced by Maitreya's curse. He made it clear that this was the only way Bhima could gain victory. The Pandavas have again been placed in a perilous position due to Yudhishthira's fault, Krishna continued. The learned Shukra has stated that the remnant of a defeated army rallied and returned to the fight are always to be feared, being desperate and fixed in their determination. Duryodhana had lost everything and was ready to enter the forest. Yudhishthira should not have challenged him. Now Bhima must surely use unfair means to end this fight, otherwise the kingdom will again be lost. O hero! Krishna knew that Bhima was endeavoring to defeat Duryodhana by fair means before fulfilling his vow of breaking the prince's thigh. Arjuna understood his meaning. And catching Bhima's eye, he slapped his thigh. Bhima nodded slightly in understanding. This must be a message from Krishna. He had not wanted to strike Duryodhana below the belt until he was overpowered, but perhaps there was no alternative. The Kaurava was fighting with demoniac fury, exhibiting every skill and showing no sign of fatigue, nor did it seem possible to make any impression on him, no matter how hard he was struck. Krishna's advice was his only chance. Bhima moved about rapidly in front of Duryodhana, displaying his maneuvers and baffling his foe. Duryodhana in turn showed the full range of moves described in the ancient martial scriptures. The two men met savagely, their maces colliding with showers of sparks and huge cracks that momentarily deafened the observers. They fought like a pair of maddened tigers, sweat pouring from their faces and blood running down their bodies. Again, separating, they stood for some moments to lean on their maces and regain their breath. Then they flew at one another with great yells. Both had smashed the other's armor and now fought only in their loincloths. Their well-muscled frames gleamed in the late afternoon sun as they sprang and lunged and parried. Taking a step backwards as if to avoid Duryodhana's mace, Bhima suddenly hurled his weapon at the Kaurava, keeping hold of its sling. Duryodhana anticipated the blow and sidestepped it. Catching Bhima with his arms outstretched, he struck him a powerful blow on his side. Bhima was winded but showed no sign Summoning his patience as he pulled back his mace, Duryodhana then realized that his opponent was disadvantaged. Exercising caution, he did not aim a second stroke at him. Bhima, recovering, narrowed his eyes and rushed forward. He swung his mace, and as he expected, Duryodhana leapt upwards in a maneuver known as Avashtana. Bhima suddenly stopped in front of Duryodhana and swung his mace chest high in a rapid arc. As the Kaurava dropped back to the ground, he was struck across the thighs. The blow carried the momentum of Bhima's forward dash, as well as the powerful full power of his two arms. Bhima's mace, which took 3 strong men to lift, smashed Duryodhana's thighs like a thunderbolt breaking a pair of huge trees. The ground shook as Duryodhana fell flat. Screaming, he lay there writhing in pain. It was obvious that the fight was over. All the Pandava forces roared in joy. Yudhishthira embraced his brothers, and Krishna applauded Bhima. The air was again filled with strange omens. Showers of dust and bones fell from the sky. Fierce winds gusted, and a terrific noise issued from the bowels of the earth. The sky was filled with frightful roaring rakshasas, yakshas, and danavas. Darkness enveloped the 4 quarters, and fierce beasts yelled on all sides. Of course, we saw it happen when Duryodhana was born, in all these inauspicious things. And then, of course, now that he's fixing the past, the same type of thing happens. Bhima, still seething, approached his fallen foe. "O wretch, recall now how you insulted Draupadi, and how you committed so many sins against the sinless Yudhishthira. Accept the fruits of your actions." Bhima lifted his left foot and kicked Duryodhana. With his foot placed on the Kaurava's head, he continued, his voice harsh. "By the ascetic penance of Draupadi's daughter, you lie here, and your army is crushed. Let all those who saw her dragged into the assembly hall witness your defeat. All those who insulted and disregarded the Pandavas are slain." Seeing Bhima standing with his foot on Duryodhana's head, many of the Pandava warriors were shocked and cried out, "Shame!" Balaram, witnessing Bhima's abuse, was filled with rage. Already aghast at the way Bhima had struck the Kaurava down, he called out, "Fie on Bhima! How has he struck such a blow in a fair fight? No stroke should ever be aimed beneath the belt. This is the ancient rule, but this wretch has broken it. Such an act cannot go unpunished." Balaram raised his plow weapon and ran at Bhima, appearing like Mount Kailash, rushing toward the Himavat. Krishna quickly pursued him and caught hold of him. Encircling his elder brother with his powerful arms, Krishna stopped him before he could reach Bhima. The 2 Yadu heroes shone beautifully and looked like the sun and moon conjoining in the evening sky. As Balaram struggled against his brother's grasp, Krishna said, "O hero, you should not act in this way. Bhima has served even our interests. The Pandavas are our friends. Indeed, they are the children of our father's sister. Duryodhana was their sworn enemy, and thus our enemy as well. His death was to be sought by us by any means. Furthermore, it was Bhima's solemn vow that he would break Duryodhana's thighs and slay him. The keeping of vows is always a sacred duty, and Bhima's vow was confirmed by the words of the infallible Rishi Maitreya. For all this, O slayer of Pralamba, I do not see any fault in Bhima. Give up your anger and be peaceful, O foremost of men." Balaram laughed dryly. Krishna was always an expert in providing arguments, but he was not convinced. Still held by Krishna, he replied, "In my view, Bhima has sacrificed religion for the sake of material gain. This can never lead to success and happiness." Krishna answered, "Surely you are famous for your devotion to righteousness, but there is no unrighteousness in Bhima. He has carried out his promise and requited the debt he owed his enemy. Know, O powerful brother, that the terrible age of Kali is at hand, marked by fierce acts and the loss of religion." Balaram slackened, and Krishna released his grip on him. Still angry, he said in a resounding voice, "For this dishonest act, Bhima will henceforward be known as a cunning warrior. The righteous Duryodhana, on the other hand, will be known as a fair fighter. The Kaurava king has performed sacrifice and given much charity to the Brahmins. Having at last offered his life as a libation into the fire of his foes, he will attain the regions of lasting happiness." With that, Balaram strode away with Krishna and mounted his chariot. His charioteer urged on his horses, and he sped away like a white cloud speeding through the heavens. Bhima folded his palms and bowed his head as his martial teacher left. He had stood passively as Balaram had rushed toward him. Death at his hands would have been glorious. After watching him ride swiftly away, Bhima turned again to Duryodhana, who was almost fainting from the pain. He raised his foot to kick him one more time, but Yudhisthira caught hold of Bhima and said, "Desist, O mighty hero. You have wreaked your vengeance and gained your ends either by fair or foul means. Let him be. Do not act sinfully. Duryodhana is a king, your kinsman and lord of the Kurus. He is ruined, his brothers are slain, and his kingdom is lost. His troops are destroyed, and he is reduced to a pitiable condition. How can you offer him more insult? People always say that Bhima is righteous. Do not act in a way that is not becoming your brother." Restraining Bhima and kneeling by Duryodhana's side, Yudhisthira said to the Kaurava, "O brother, you should not grieve. Truly you are suffering now the terrible consequences of your own deeds. This, O king, is a universal law. None can avoid the results of their acts, either in this life or the next. Surely everything has been ordained by the Creator. Responding to your own desires, surely everything has been ordained by the Creator. Responding to our own desires. Through your avarice, pride, and folly, you have suffered this calamity. Having caused the death of all your brothers, sons, companions, and followers, you must now meet death yourself. Millions of heroes have gone to death's abode. You must follow them, O heroes, such is the course of destiny." Yudhisthira felt genuine compassion for Duryodhana, seeing him as a foolish younger brother. Wanting to comfort and console him, he went on, "You are not to be pitied, O Kaurava, for you have met an enviable death in a righteous battle. It is we who should be pitied. We will have to drag on a miserable existence, devoid of our friends and kinsmen. Alas, how will I see my relatives, widows, overwhelmed with grief? You, O king, are departing from this world and going to regions of bliss. On the other hand, we will have to remain in this world of pain and suffering." Yudhisthira sighed, and tears rolled down his cheeks. He stood up and walked away from Duryodhana, who said nothing. Yudhisthira's sentiments were noble, but they only gave the Kaurava more pain. He did not want to be pitied. Screwing up his eyes, he lay gasping. Krishna, who had also disapproved of Bhima's abuse of the fallen Duryodhana, went to Yudhisthira's side and spoke consolingly. Placing his arm around his shoulder, he said, "O king, you have won a great victory. Do not grieve. All this has come about ordained by time. The fire of Bhima's anger has consumed Duryodhana. The war is over. Bhima, his anger subsiding, moved away from Duryodhana and stood before Yudhisthira, addressing him with folded hands. O king, the earth is now yours, with all its thorns removed. He who was the root of these hostilities, that wretched and deceitful being, now lies on the bare ground. All those sinful men who supported him and uttered cruel words toward us are slain. The earth, filled with riches, today approaches you as her lord. Yudhisthira embraced his brother and replied, the war is now over. Duryodhana is overcome, and we have conquered the entire earth through Krishna's instructions. By good luck, you have laid off your debt to your mother. You have paid off your debt to your mother and to your anger. By good luck, you are victorious and your enemy is killed. All the Pandava warriors roared and waved their upper garments. Some twanged their bowstrings, and others blew their conches. Others beat drums and laughed loudly. Jumping about and sporting, they praised Bhima, applauding him for striking down Duryodhana, and even for placing his foot on his head. Krishna held up his hand disapprovingly. O kings, it is not right to kill an already slain enemy with such words. This sinful, shameless, and covetous wretch has received the results of his own folly. Now he is no more. He has become like a piece of wood. We should regard him as neither friend nor foe. No further energy or thought should be expelled on him. Let us leave this place at once. By good luck, the wicked and cruel-hearted Duryodhana is killed, along with all his ministers and counselors. Duryodhana heard Krishna's words from where he lay and hauled himself onto his elbows, supporting himself with difficulty. He contracted his eyebrows and looked angrily at Krishna. Like a snake spitting out venom, he said, O son of Kamsa's slave, it seems you have no shame. Have you forgotten the sinful way by which I was defeated? How could you? It was on your instigation that Bhima struck his sinful blow. Do you think I did not notice? It has been by your deceitful machinations that so many heroes have been unfairly killed. Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and Bharishrava were all killed thanks to your cunning. Without your wily advice, the Pandavas would have stood no chance in the war. Duryodhana gasped in pain and dropped back to the ground, his face covered in perspiration. As he lay there panting, Krishna replied, You, O son of Gandhari, have been killed with your brothers, sons, and kinsmen, only because of your own sinful deeds. O fool, it was I who requested you to return the Pandavas' share of the kingdom, but out of sheer avarice you refused. You have committed so many wicked acts against your cousins. When you insulted the sinless Draupadi in the assembly hall, you should have been slain then and there. For that crime you are now killed. O sinful wretch, for the crime of assailing Abhimanyu in an unfair encounter, you are slain. You have never respected your elders and heeded their advice. Thus do you now lie here on the bare earth. Do not rail uselessly. You are suffering nothing but the consequences of your own evil acts. Duryodhana's voice, racked with pain, croaked in response. What do I care for your words? Having studied the Vedas, performed sacrifice, and given charity and governed the earth, I am now dying a glorious death. That end which is always sought for by virtuous Kshatriyas is mine. I have enjoyed pleasures worthy of the gods and attained the highest prosperity. Who is as fortunate as me? With all my brothers, I will ascend to heaven, while you Pandavas will remain here, torn by grief and continuing to suffer. As Duryodhana spoke, a shower of fragrant blossoms dropped from the sky. The Gandharvas and Apsaras played musical instruments and sang, while the cities cried out, Praise be to King Duryodhana! The celestials looked with wonder at the scene below. Duryodhana's fall before Krishna was all auspicious. Although the Kaurava remained envious toward Krishna, the mere fact of his contact with that eternal supreme deity conferred upon him the greatest possible blessing. Everyone killed in Krishna's presence doubtlessly reached regions of everlasting happiness. As celestial music filled the sky, a disembodied voice called out that Duryodhana had been unfairly killed. as had Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and Bharishrava. Hearing the invisible voice, the Pandavas felt ashamed. Remorseful for the way the 5 heroes had been slain, they looked at Krishna. Seeing their affliction, Krishna reassured them, speaking in a grave voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds. Do not grieve, O best of men. There are no other way these men could have been slain. For doing so, by doing you good as well as for lifting the burden of the earth, I applied my illusory powers so that victory would be yours. In a fair fight, it would have been impossible to slay those Atiratas. Even the guardians of the universe would not have succeeded. Do not feel guilty for the deceitful way they were killed. Such means are acceptable when one faces a powerful enemy, and especially when that enemy is himself deceitful. Ultimately, all the Kauravas were Duryodhana's followers, and thus were as sinful as he was. For this reason, they have been defeated, and you, O virtuous men, have been crowned with success. Krishna's heartening words were met with roars of approval from the Pandava warriors. All 5 brothers, who were ever acquiescent to Krishna, felt consoled by his arguments. Seeing that the sun had set, Krishna suggested they return to camp. Headed by Yudhisthira and Krishna, the Pandavas slowly departed, leaving Duryodhana where he lay. With both thighs shattered, he would not live much longer. Awaiting death, the prince lay back, moaning in pain. Ki Jai. You know, see, there's another example. I come across it all the time, right there, as I was mentioning earlier. Even the guardians of the universe. You know, that's a big movie that Marvel came out with, Guardians of the Universe. And there it is. Even the guardians of the universe would not have succeeded. Yeah, I've associated with some of those writers in LA, you know, when I was at the temple. And yeah, they're always looking for fresh ideas. But they'll never give credit to the Vedas. Another one that came out of the Mahabharata that I saw in here was Night Rangers. That's in the Lord of the Rings. Night Rangers in the Lord of the Rings. There's so many wonderful things like that. You know, through history, they've covered up so much. And if you ever have a question, you know, and you think no one else can really answer it, well, it's not that Fayed is initiated or anything, but he's studied so much of the world's history. If you apply that to Krishna consciousness, he would be vastly advanced, I guess. But he can tell you, like, even when they changed the alloy of coins, which president was, you know, American president was in office at the time, why they did it, and just all kinds of things you couldn't even imagine. Things that you have questions about, you know. Because he grew up without TV. He grew up reading books way up there in Canada. They didn't have TV. All they had was a radio and Reader's Digest, National Geographic, you know. And so he was consumed with reading. And his grandfather was his only person that was there, and he was not a talker. Not a talker. He survived World War II. World War I, he was in the trenches. So he was obviously up there, you know, obviously just wanted to be away from people. He was a railroad worker, you know. So we have questions, Prabhuji's? Comments, questions?
Which book did you read it from?
The Mahabharata, this Mahabharata. I know there's different copies, you know.
Author?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's Krishna Dharma. It's so amazing because, I mean, if somebody's, for instance, cursed, you know, well, I can't really answer as to, I mean, the quality of the person who does the cursing would mean whether that has power, obviously. And Krishna says, you know, when somebody's cursed, well, that has to be fulfilled, you know. So, it's pretty amazing. And like I've always said, I mean, I believe in respecting everybody. Because you never know who might want to, you know, put a curse on you. Even though this is Kali Yuga, and even to be a yogi, you have to be celibate. To be a real yogi, you know, whatever. Of course, as Vaishnavas, we just do everything for Krishna. It's very simple. We just live for Krishna. And is Krishna pleased? That's all we're concerned with. Is my Gurudev pleased? You know, that's what we live for. We don't want to displease our Gurudev. Anybody else have a comment or question? Like, you know, Bhima, he had to fulfill that, you know, what he had spoken. And back then, when he spoke something, just like when Arjuna won Draupadi, he came home and as he was entering the cottage, you know, he told his mother, "Mother, look what I won in this contest," you know. And she said, "Well, whatever it is, share it with your brothers, you know." And then before she turned around, and said, "Uh-oh, I've spoken the words. I've already spoken, I can't take them back," you know. So, words have power. We're all spirit soul. They say if you could see the soul, it's like 10,000 suns rising, you know. Soul is very powerful, but that's just because we're part of Krishna. Krishna's great, so we're just a little piece of that greatness, you know. Everybody, we should respect everybody, you know, because they're all part of Krishna. It's all Krishna. Everywhere we look, we're looking at Krishna's energy, you know. Many facets of a diamond are all part of the same diamond, you know. Might be a different facet, but they're all part of the same diamond, and it's all beautiful. No one else has a comment or question? Thank you for allowing me to serve you, Prabhuji. And of course, it's Thanksgiving Day today. Glories to Srila Prabhupada, to the Parampara,